All right, so all of us are part of this committee, and we're going to have a whiteboard session tonight to try and figure out what exactly our objective is in the long run of doing this. And I appreciate all of you willing to serve on this committee. So, Janie, why don't we start with you as far as introducing yourself so we all know who you are and get to know each other.
My name is Janie Cummings. I'm a first grade teacher at RSU14. This is my 37th year teaching in the Raymond system.
Rolf Olson, town for over 40 years now. Been in the budget committee for about 30 years now. And actually I was on the committee that helped when we developed the concept for the new middle school.
My name is Dave Cowens, and I'm a rookie as far as serving on any committees in the town of Raymond, but we've had property here since 1983 on Deep Cove Road.
My name is Steve Warshaw. I'm a retired psychologist and formerly a substitute at Raymond Middle School, after I retired, of course.
I'm Kayla Gonzalez. I'm a new resident to Raymond, and I have 2 small children, which is why I'm very interested in this committee.
My name is Marshall Bullock. I'm a retired banker / high school teacher, and I'm on the Budget Finance Committee for Town of Raymond.
My name's Heather Keene. I'm the assistant manager at Overshawn Hardware in Naples, and I'm a 3rd grade mom at Raymond Elementary.
I'm Anna Keeney. I have 4 kids in school. Well, I have 4 kids, 3 of whom are in school. I have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and an elementary schooler. So it's kind of a big deal in our house.
Jennifer, you're just in time to introduce yourself.
Is there a format?
Yeah, just tell people who you are and what you do, and we'll move on.
Okay. I'm Jen Moore. I am the person that was appointed from the RSU school board. I am obviously a Raymond resident. I've got 2 kids, one in each of the schools here in Raymond, and I am in healthcare.
I'm Joe Bernard, the chair of this committee, and been an elected official in Raymond since 1989.
I'm Teresa Sadak. I run a daycare in town here. I have 2 kids that have graduated the system. I'm the one that started the petition and got that circulated. And I am on the select board. This will be my 2nd year? Second.
I'm Caitlin LaCase. I'm the community member on the committee, and I have a 2-year-old, and so we all have vested interest. But one of the reasons why I was interested.
Hi, I'm Mike McClellan. I'm the state rep for Raymond, right, or most of Raymond, because they've split it this year. My wife is assistant superintendent at Auburn. I work in a nonprofit, and my kids went to Raymond, and like Rolf, I was involved with that middle school committee as well.
I'm Louise Lester, newly retired town clerk of the town of Raymond, and very happy. I've lived in Raymond for 55 years, and since I was 5 years old, went through the Jordan Small system, and I'm here to see what I can do to help.
Robert Goslin. I'm a resident of Raymond since 1998. I'm a 3-term member of the Budget Finance Committee. I had the opportunity at that initial point to review the school budgets and see the school move to RSUs. So I plan to be involved in the process and investigating if that's still our best fit.
Hi, Paul Cullinan. I've been a resident of Raymond since 2009. Before that, I was a budget analyst at the Congressional Budget Office for 27 years and worked at Brookings for a few years.
Great.
One other note, Joe and I were actually on the committee together to do the consolidation committee when we consolidated.
2007 and 8.
Yep.
Yeah, I went through the names of people that were on that committee today, and you and I are the only ones who are still around. So, anyway, tonight I want to get an idea from all of us as to what you think the purpose of this is, and how are we going to go about being able to do this in an orderly fashion and make sure we answer all the questions that we all have. And so, if you want to start throwing out ideas, and I'll write them down, because Paul says no one can read his writing, I'll write them down, and then we have to make sure we focus on what exactly are we doing here. And I think one of the big reasons is the education of our children. Is this the best fit that we have currently, or do we need to go another direction? The cost to taxpayers always has to be in mind for this to make sure it's affordable, and is there a less expensive alternative? Other ideas? Yes.
I would say less, rather than less expensive, better. Better alternative. Not necessarily less expensive.
Okay. Better alternative. Okay?
Not just a better alternative for in terms of quality of education for our children, but can we find a better alternative for the faculty and staff who are essentially the town's employees?
Faculty and staff. Okay. Others?
I think if you go to, when you decided to collaborate, there was a statement of intent, there was a mission statement, and there was a program enhancements part. And I don't think those have changed probably too much.
Probably not.
Going the other way, so I think it's already been outlined, pretty much everything.
Now, if you read that consolidation agreement back from 2008, there's a lot of good stuff in there, you know, that was supposed to happen. And I think what brought us to this point is a lot of it didn't happen. For example, the funding formula. You know, how does Raymond pay its share? Now, if you read the agreement, it was supposed to happen after 2 years. It did not happen. But they had to do it after 5 years. They had to look at it. And that's what brought us to this point, is they never looked at the funding formula.
I think that was my question, is just not knowing anything about it. It's nice to put things on paper and they have, you know, goals, but what really happened?
Yeah.
You know, and
I don't know
why
if it-
did it not happen, or why did?
I don't know if it was an oversight by the board, or it was never brought up by the administration. I mean,
Well, and we had talked about that, and one of the things that we did is we had a meeting with the select board, with the school board, and these were some questions that we had wanted to ask. And that meeting, I don't think ever really happened because we were introducing each other and stuff like that. But 5 years of this, they had, I think it was June 30th, they voted to not do anything with that agreement. And in July, I filed the petition. Now, all of a sudden, that has become a priority.
I'm confused.
The cost sharing.
funding formula.
Sorry, the
Oh,
cost
okay.
sharing for what we pay, because we pay 45% over EPS, which we don't have a lot of kids into that school system. And EPS is essential programs and services, and it's what the state tells us that we should be paying for kids' educations is what it is. And they didn't feel it was a priority because they voted to leave it the same as it was at the end of June. Now all of a sudden it is a priority, and it's actually being voted on Wednesday night. The school board is voting on this cost sharing plan to take it to the people, to change it, to reduce Raymond's share. But
Yeah, I see, I don't know anything about what you just talked about. I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah, well, what,
How can that be?
I'm sorry, but I just.
no, I know. It's a long running history is what it
it's a
is.
contract,
Yeah.
and they
So
did
how-
not follow the contract, that's
Okay.
what happened.
That's
So what can be done about that?
Well,
Exactly what
they're
we're
acting on
As
it now.
far as if it was supposed to be done in 2 years and now it's been 5.
Well, they were supposed to do it in 2 years, but if they didn't do it after 2 years, they had to at 5 years, mandatorily do it,
So
okay?
they're not necessarily in violation.
No,
Well, the 5
they will
years
be.
actually was in 2013, so they're a year
So they are
behind,
now.
actually.
Actually, almost 2 years behind.
Yeah.
Well, by the time.
Well, it was July, I think the consolidation actually began 2008, right? July 1st?
I think it was 8-9 budget is what it is.
Yeah, so.
But if they go with their proposed plan now, you're actually gonna be 8 years, because it's not gonna,
Right.
the full effect isn't gonna kick in for
Right.
another 3 years. So in
Exactly.
effect, they're gonna be almost 4 years retarded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that,
So in effect, Raymond's gonna continue to pay 45% of the EPS?
well,
No,
it's,
what they're proposing is a 3-year, extended out 3 years, because they want to make Wyndham happy is what's happening.
Of course.
So
well, I mean,
they have to vote
one
on
thing
it.
I don't wanna do is just bash Wyndham.
I'm
not-
I
no, I'm
wanna
not
make
interested in
this
bashing
productive.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not
I'm trying to
bashing,
get
but
a-
what happens is, Wyndham has to be happy with it, and I wouldn't be happy with it, all of a sudden getting this big tax increase too, in defense of Wyndham, because
Oh, I
it should have
understand
been,
that.
right.
Yeah. I mean, our school population has dropped
Yes,
significantly, and so that has an impact on what Raymond should be paying,
yes.
so. Jenna, do you have anything to add to what's going on with the board?
No, I mean, I don't know if folks know I'm pretty new to the board, so
Yeah.
I'm still learning myself. I will say the consolidation agreement says that they can review after 2 years.
Right.
They must review after 5, so
Right.
there's not a violation, and that
Right.
we as taxpayers could call that to them at any time, right?
Yeah.
It's on us too to
Right.
call the question.
Yeah.
Joe, do we know what the population numbers in fact are?
The school population?
Right.
Anybody know off the top of their head?
Off the top of my
For the
head, so I
three
can easily get
schools.
them.
That's one of the things that we had talked about at our last meeting, because
Right.
she has offered to get stuff at the school that we are looking for, and that the
I'm
numbers.
thinking Raymond's population is around 700.
Total.
They're all
Total.
declining, actually.
Do they have
Right.
before?
Less than that.
No,
it's about
Yeah.
5.
Yeah, I know.
The
It's down
population
to
of
five.
children,
No, it's
John?
around
Yeah.
Right.
No.
In the
600, right?
It's less than that. It's about, I would say about 500 maybe.
Really? It's dropped that much?
Yeah.
Do we have the
In
forecasted
all three
numbers
schools?
too, or just the current number?
I'm only talking about the 2 schools. I'm not talking about the high school.
Oh, no, I'm talking
You're talking about the whole
total
population. Oh,
Total
well,
population.
700 children is about right.
About right, yeah. So, one of the other things we hear a lot about is governance, that Raymond does not have, only has 3 out of 9 seats on the school board. Well, I understand why people are upset with that, but Wyndham's 4 times the population of Wyndham. Our constitution is based on 1 man, 1 vote. You divide out the population, 6-3 is what it turns out. I mean, that hasn't changed even with the current populations. Yes.
So I would have no problem with that if we were paying money in that same kind of
6-3?
6-3.
Well, the formula is based on valuation, town valuation, which Raymond is just under $1 billion in valuation. Wyndham's about 1.7 billion. So when you do the math on that, and then it's based on how many kids we send to the school, if what we send to Wyndham is gonna drop, it's based on our population of kids dropping, not on our valuation.
But Joe, that's changed, and I listened to the attorney that came to the school board meeting, and because we are not an SAU, we aren't regulated by the laws as an RSU, so they can pick how they break down. They can pick it by number of kids, they can pick it by valuations, they can do a little bit of both, they can come up with their own concoction and stuff like that, so.
So hey, Joe, we keep saying they, who is they?
Oh, the school board,
state.
sorry, and
The
state was,
the school
the
board.
school board's the one that would pick this.
But Raymond has 3 people on that school board.
Right.
Yeah.
And so are they not, is that contingent not doing what they should be doing, or they just get outvoted all the time, or how does that whole thing work?
I mean, we have 3 members on that school
representation for
committee, with
Raymond.
Jennifer being one of them.
And
Jennifer was she was just elected
attacked here.
last year.
Yes, present company excluded.
Yeah.
Is that why you're now serving on this committee, because you're a rookie?
By law, I'm member has to be on this.
All right.
But
So,
I have kids.
and then Diana
in my
Freusler has
care
been on, what, 2 years? And Jerry Keene Dreyer has been on it since the inception. So, those are the 3 people we have. And, I don't know, I don't go to school committee.
Right.
I just,
Well,
Don't have
I
the
can
time.
tell you that they are very strong and committed people. However, when there's 6 others, and, 6-3, there's not, I mean, they get voted, if they,
I just didn't know that.
that's what happens.
Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, couple of things. When consolidation happened, I think I voted no. I think I voted, my kids were in college, it wasn't that big a deal to me at the time, no insight. But I know knocking on doors this fall when I was running for office, there's a lot of people in Raymond that are confused about what's going on tonight. And so as I'm listening to the tone of the beginning of this, regardless of where we're at, is it important to say that we're gonna start at a balanced look at this issue?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And I just, like I said, given the tone here, I just wanna make sure that that is in the minutes.
My goal is to look at this from both sides.
Yep, all right.
Yeah, and figure out what's the best interest in the Raymond kids, first of all.
Okay.
Where are they gonna get the best opportunity? And then also, what is it to the Raymond taxpayers who are footing the bill on this?
Right. And the second thing, I don't know if I'm on the education committee in Augusta, there's been a study of the EPS formula done. So we are waiting, I'm guessing this year there might be something that could change totally.
Everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So, another thing that we have to think about is a contract with the high school. Even if you decide to dissolve this RSU, you must have a contract with a high school that's gonna take our kids that are guaranteed.
For 10 years.
For 10 years. Now, before consolidation, we had a contract with Wyndham. And so, and going back to my days on the school committee back in the late 80s, early 90s, we had a contract with Westbrook, Gray, and Wyndham, all 3 of them. But our primary contract was with Westbrook, actually. So, then we went to Wyndham and negotiated a contract with them for a 10% discount off the rate based on the state formula. So whatever the tuition rate was with the state, we got a 10% discount.
Well, I think it's important to recognize when that was done also, there was another side of that, which was, we also guaranteed a certain percentage.
Right.
I think it was 50%.
Which was 50%.
Right, and that's what allowed them, that's what allowed them to be able to get,
Yeah.
the
money for the
funding
high school.
For the high school.
for the high school, so.
Yeah.
So
We
it
did
wasn't,
us a
it wasn't
favor
just
to
a, it
Wyndham.
wasn't just a one-way deal.
Right, right.
And this contract we have now, our kids don't have to go to, doesn't the contract say we have to have 50% or more? But Raymond kids could go to different high schools?
We have, Raymond voted in 2008 to allow, choice in schools.
High schools.
So we
in
still
high
have
school.
High school, yeah.
Yeah,
So we still have choice, and we have to put that in the contract also. But even though we signed up a contract with them, we can't guarantee we're gonna send 50 kids, or it's the kids' choices to go with it. But we have to have something afterwards.
And what proportion of the high school kids choose?
Wyndham?
No, out of Wyndham.
I think we have about 40 kids who go somewhere else.
I think it's almost like 85-90% that goes to Wyndham. I think now that go, and then there's like a 10% that, yeah. And we can get all those numbers too.
Yeah, I think that's important, that we begin to talk about numbers. We need financial numbers, we need numbers in terms of students. Before we can make any kind of decision, we've got to count.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a certain list, I think it's section 1466 of the state law, is everything that's listed out. And what we're trying to do too is put everything on this Google Drive, so you guys all have all this access to all this information. And it's listed out exactly everything that has to be in that withdrawal agreement. And we're pulling up other withdrawal agreements too that have already been done to try and follow off of it. But that's one of the things about starting this whole process, is to dig into the numbers to see what is the best thing, because we don't know until we start saying, okay, how many teachers do we need? How many students do we have? What do we have for, and I put on there a bunch of budgets from before. I think the only budget I'm missing is the 08, 09, the one right first when we consolidated. And I think we're gonna need to get that from Wyndham, because I can't find it anywhere.
Our current school budget is $8.5 million is what the town of Raymond pays to Wyndham currently.
With regard to that 1466, is there a waiver provision anywhere in that, request an alternative?
I'm lost, I'm sorry.
you said it had features of it that
Yep.
said, now, is that 100% or is there any sort of waiver that school districts can apply for or whatever?
Not that I know of. It says the agreement for withdrawal must comply with this subsection, and then it literally lists out 10, 11 things under A, B, C, D. There's quite a few things. You know, and a lot of them has transportation, administration, debt service, special ed.
All that stuff was in the consolidation agreement too.
Yeah, it should be.
So we've got the model for it.
Yep, and if we don't have it in there, we have it in like Sacco's and Freeport's, and you pulled up.
I've read the same door.
Yep,
Last year.
yep. We were trying to pull up as many as we could.
One of the big things we have facing us is the cost of repairing the school right here. You know,
But the cost of repairing that too, Joe, we have to remember something else is, even if we stay consolidated and this new cost sharing agreement, Raymond's still gonna have to pay for that anyways. Because what that new cost sharing plan that the school board is asking the towns to vote on is any subsequent repairs in each town that their own town pays for. Instead of a joint effort paying a certain percentage, then like any repairs like the roof to Jordan Small Middle School, Raymond would be paying
Except
for
for the
that.
high school, right?
Except for the high school.
Yeah.
Well, this is,
So either way, we own
this
that.
RSU still owns.
Yeah. If this goes through, because right now, if it doesn't pass, and any repairs that we push and push and push to get through, it would be under the above EPS or whatever, or
You sure it was
bonding or
for
whatever.
repair? I know it was for new construction. You sure it was repairs also? The new construction
They
squarely,
said-
like if Wyndham built their middle school, they would own
I
that
think
for
they
repairs too.
put any repairs or any construction at all, because that's a big cost, a new
it's
roof
a
on
few
that.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Well, considering the RSU owns the property.
Well, they will until you have the withdrawal. Part of the withdrawal negotiations is that everything comes back to Raymond. That's even in the original consolidation agreement.
So the different each town owning buildings, having the RSU buildings in their town would be responsible for the repairs to it while we're still in the RSU, or is this after we break away if we did?
Both, because what happens is if it's, either way, if this cost sharing plan goes through and we're still consolidated, we're gonna have to pay for our own repairs. I'm like 95% sure of that.
Given they own the property, but that doesn't make sense to me.
And I think it all boils down to Raymond not wanting to pay for a new middle school. When our kids wouldn't be going there, but we'd have to be paying 45% of it.
If you read the original consolidation agreement, it calls itself the Raymond Wyndham School District. It doesn't say Raymond Wyndham High School, it says Wyndham High School. They haven't adopted Raymond into, feeling a part of the RSU.
It's school buses tax.
The school buses have, is that Raymond Wyndham?
RSU14, yeah.
Wasn't that a decision made, though, as a discussion about it was always, has been known as Wyndham High School, and to change that? I recall that discussion.
No, because what happens is that came up by a couple of people to say, why aren't they changing it? And a few school board members said, it will never change, it will always be Wyndham High School. And in that case, and this is how some people feel that it's not that consolidated effort, that feeling that people don't get.
Okay. Another question I have, or a concern I have, what happens to all of the texts and things like that were bought?
Personnel.
Pardon me? Textbooks
Oh,
and
yeah.
and other equipment that was bought by the RSU that is housed in Raymond, or that has gone around from different places.
Yeah.
Where does it go? How is that?
You, the thing you sent us from Sacco, if you read through that, it pretty much, if it was in the building, it stayed. I
Okay.
remember.
Software licensing.
Well,
There was actually formulas for splitting things out. Yeah, it was pretty.
It's
pretty-
literally negotiating
see,
everything out.
what's troubling for me is that when you consolidated, if you just look through that, there was a real property fixtures, personal property part. There was all about the bonds, and it was all about if you couldn't pay for this, money had to come from someplace else, and it all went, the day before you were gonna do this, all the contracts with people had to be set, and after that, they got assumed, everything got put
Absorbed.
into this new thing. But what you're telling me is that a lot of the things that were told that were gonna happen didn't happen.
I don't know about a lot of.
But I don't know, I mean, whatever
I think
didn't
the
happen.
big thing is the funding formula didn't happen.
Okay.
No, there's actually,
Yeah.
So I just don't think we want
Right,
to
which
start
is-
over. It's like you got, there's some issues here that I think if you're gonna go from the template of what you agreed to do and everybody agreed to do, find out what are the things that people didn't do that they agreed to do and start from there.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why we met with the school committee.
Okay.
Which is why I think the school committee has finally addressed it. The problem is, when you read the contract, in order to change that funding formula, it must be passed by a 2/3 vote, if I remember.
It's, yeah, and you
Right?
know what, I have it, let me pull it up.
It's a high barrier
It's on
to
page
get
12.
over.
Page 12. Page 12.
Well, why do you
Well,
wanna
that's my-
change the funding formula from
Okay.
what you initially agreed to do?
Well, because we have a whole lot less kids. Our valuation has probably held steady while Wyndham's has gone up. And they haven't looked at it. They've just left it at that 45% number without doing the math. But the math they look at is 2 years retroactive. So it takes a while for it to catch up to where we are today.
Is that the crux of the issue?
I think that's a big part of it, Dave, I really do. I mean, Teresa.
We've got a lot of
Yeah.
budget people here, I heard.
I mean,
Should be able to figure that one out.
That's why I started the whole thing, was because I didn't think it was right to have to pay for a new middle school when you've got properties right here in town. And especially Joe brought it up at some school board, at a select board meeting, that we're paying 45%, and was told, no, that wasn't accurate. So when we asked for that accurate number, we never got it. So I went looking for it, and I'm like, oh my God, we pay a lot. And then to have a new school, that we have schools here that we can use for, they can't pay for things in schools now. So how do you think people are gonna pay with no state funding for a school?
So if you could work that out,
It's put in the
have
garage
to
right
do this
now
whole
with the school
thing.
board.
I'm just asking, I'm brand
Well,
new, I don't
You're
really
being
know.
pragmatic, David.
I'm just
What
trying to
do you think?
figure out,
I mean, you know,
a lot of people here are gonna spend a lot of time going around in circles and listening to things, but it's like, it's like, can't we figure out whatever this one or two things is and straighten it out?
Yeah.
Negotiate it out and figure it out.
what, that's what we're
Cross
trying.
the aisle and all
I
that.
think we're going down two paths and maybe arriving at the same point.
Uh-huh.
You know, my kids went to Wyndham, you know, and they did okay. Now, that was 20 years ago, right? Or somewhere around there. But I mean, they went to middle school in Wyndham at the time because Jordan Small was shut down. So, you know, my kids did okay going to Wyndham. Now, there's a lot of people who don't like Wyndham, say the standards aren't good and all. I mean, I don't know. I think education is what you make of it, and, you know, how much effort you put into it, so.
I don't think it's a matter of Wyndham being a good school. That isn't to me. It's a matter of the money that this town is being
Okay.
asked to pay for. And you know what?
Focus on
I didn't just jump into this. I started from January all the way down and watched this whole process go out. And we asked for meetings. The select school board chair came and talked to us, and it just kept going down that. And right now, that new middle school, if you look at the last sheet that they gave out to us, I don't think you have it, but they put it in a garage, and they plan on bringing that out again to look at it again after the cost sharing, after this thing is taken care of here. And that cost sharing thing has to be voted on by the towns by March 2015, by both towns and passed in order for it to kick in for July of 2015.
Passed by what majority?
2/3? Is it simple majority or 2/3?
I think it's simple majority. Okay, I think it's simple majority because you can either have a public hearing or you can have a referendum. That's how scary this is. Something that big can either go to a small little meeting like this. And Wyndham doesn't have a lot of people show up at their town meetings at all. So they can have a referendum of 10 people show up. I mean, a town meeting and pass this or not pass it. Or they can go to referendum.
You know what I think the 2/3 is? 2/3 of the school committee must vote for it.
And the school committee has
Send
to
it
vote,
out.
and they're voting on it
Right.
tomorrow night, Wednesday night, I believe, is what I saw on the agenda.
Jeff, do you have an idea, a feel for where that's gonna go as far as the funding formula?
Read minds.
I think, I think it's a it's a good formula that was proposed, and the committee that worked on it was split with Wyndham and Raymond representatives, and I think it will pass at that level. And
Right.
then the question is, does it pass that vote?
Right. Because during that public hearing, you have to point out the impact of the new formula on both towns. And then, right, and then what will happen is Wyndham's gonna go, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah,
so-
our taxes are gonna go up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
And by the third year, they're gonna go up big, but I think the scary part is getting word out to people. That's the hardest thing. And you mentioned, Mike, not a lot of people knowing. Trying to get word out to people of this stuff going on. Every select board meeting, I mentioned comments about, oh my God, people, you gotta pay attention to what's going on. And finally, this was my way of saying, okay, I'm done with this. I need to get something going,
Yeah.
and I did the petition.
I was gonna say, I think where the 2/3 was on, it says amendments to the RSU plan, that needs a two-thirds of the RSU board of directors.
Right. right, which is the funding formula.
The other thing I'd like to bring up is things like the Real School and the Sebago Educational Alliance. Those are expensive. And how much does Raymond pay, and how much do they get out of it?
I think it's a per individual basis is what it is, because I'm not real familiar with the real school and that type of thing, but I think that's something that we would have to pull the numbers on and get the numbers.
But in this plan, I was amazed at the amount of money that they're spending on not so much the Real School, because there weren't a lot of numbers on that one, but on the Alliance. That's expensive. It's all administration.
But Raymond has been part of that alliance from way back, like,
Probably
at least
inception,
20
but
years.
I know it was when I was on the board from the
Yeah.
school board.
Rough.
Joe, I mean, I guess, you know, and I guess I've never been bashful about saying it, but, you know, I don't think the concept of consolidation was ever truly embraced in Wyndham. And it really came to home back when, you know, when we got into the whole issue of, we had space in our schools, they were crowded in theirs, and the whole issue of, well, in a true consolidation, if that was the case, the logic is you bring and you fill, you do an inventory, you fill the buildings, you do what you have to do to make the best use of people, personnel, and equipment. That was never embraced, and in fact, it was shunned as soon as it was discussed. Let's send some of the kids there to make use of it. I mean, you've got kids that live closer to this school than they do to Wyndham, but it was perceived as dumbing them down to send them to Wyndham, or to Raymond. And unless you're gonna have true embracement of consolidation, it doesn't make sense.
So kids from Wyndham don't go to Raymond, but all the kids from Raymond go to Wyndham.
Well, remember, it was
Kinda.
proposed that kids from Wyndham come to Raymond
It was.
to balance out the overcrowding in the middle school, and the Wyndham parents had a revolt and said, we're not doing that.
I see.
And so, Jan?
I think it wasn't all the Wyndham parents who had difficulty with it. I think it was a group of vocal Wyndham parents, a small group of vocal Wyndham parents who had the ear of the school committee, the Wyndham School Committee at that time. And they, even those people who said, we believe that there should be, that some of those children should come to Raymond, changed after that vocal group of people said.
But each parent has a choice, correct? I mean,
At that time, no. At that
Oh, they
time,
don't?
they were, when they redistrict, or when they considered redistricting, those people who had houses in that district or in that area would come to Raymond Elementary School and Jordan Small School. There are 1,000 children in Wyndham Primary School, and the thought was that they could send some of them to Raymond Elementary School where there are empty classrooms.
But you see, that was just part of the point there. The whole terming of it, of redistricting, says that there was no true consolidation. It's not redistricting when you have a consolidated system, and it just says we're going to put someone into this class, into this building instead. That is not redistricting. The whole group, the whole consolidation is a district.
Right.
So their whole terming it a redistricting said that they never embraced consolidation.
And I told him, take out Wyndham and Raymond, take out the names, and I went to a Wyndham meeting, and I got booed, and I got told, go home, I don't know what I'm talking about. And I said, you have an RSU, this is consolidation, you look at the properties, you use what you have, and then you see what you need. And they told me, go home, you're from Raymond, and no joke, and it's, yeah.
I just gotta jump into that. I went to the meetings that Jane was talking about. There was one before that, they wanted to close one of our schools. That was the idea, and it turned out the school board members had actually never been to the building prior to that meeting, and it was kind of ugly. It was not a good thing. Then the meeting came about sending the Wyndham kids to Raymond, and that got uglier. So it kind of was both ways. But I want to continue. I think it's a good point Rolf's making about, is this really a partnership? And as I've heard about this the last couple of years, I asked questions of staff and people, and I've heard some stories about equipment being switched, brand new Raymond stuff going to Wyndham, and
tractor.
Yes.
Well,
that tractor's
and things that, you know, I just hope to God aren't really true, but I've heard enough of them. So I think the financial piece, obviously, and the numbers piece is very important, and I think the cultural piece is this really a good marriage? Maybe it's not, and that could be okay too, but I think that's something to look at too. Is and I don't know, are kids getting shots at the sports programs and at the band and at, and at plays, and I have no idea, but.
Well, bouncing off of that, it's interesting on the cover letter that went in with, if you read it, went in with the reorganization papers. It says Raymond Wyndham School District is the unofficial name of the new system and will be changed before incorporation. Never done.
I have to say, as I said, I have a student in high school, I have a middle schooler here at Jordan Small, and I have a kid in elementary school, and one that will start at elementary school next year. And I really think that this is a largely adult problem. The kids are doing great. I mean, we have, obviously everybody's experience is different, but the transition from Raymond to Wyndham High School has been really smooth. We've been really well received. Every activity that my daughter does has, almost considering how few we send, we have a lot of kids that are really active in the activities with Wyndham. So it definitely, and at least as far as I can see, is an adult problem. The kids are doing great.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Katrina Sangster had come to a revitalization committee meeting, and I don't know if anybody was there for this meeting. There was like a bunch of business people, and one of the things she kept saying, the more that we do not build this high school, the less opportunities the kids are here afforded in Raymond, and they keep losing opportunities. And she said it probably 4 or 5 times, and finally I just said to her, I said, I don't understand, if we are a consolidated district, why are our kids losing opportunities in Raymond that they should be getting in Wyndham? And she says, because we don't have enough kids here to fill the schools, that it's costing more per student here, that it takes it away from the Wyndhams. And to me, you gotta consolidate, once again, it goes back to Rolf, if we're truly consolidated, each of them, look at the sports programs. We're still playing in a whole different league that are playing way up in Buckfield and Litchfield and all that other stuff, because they said it doesn't fit in with the class, the division that Wyndham is in. But wait a minute, we're consolidating.
Because their middle school's a lot bigger than our middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens. I think that's an important thing, is scholastic opportunities. Can Raymond, if it breaks off on its own, be able to offer the same opportunities to students that Wyndham can offer? I think that's important to look at.
Well, excuse me for a second, John. I just heard 2 different things. I understand that at the high school, the Raymond kids have the same opportunities as any other kid, as the Wyndham kids. And I haven't had kids in the system. My kids are somewhat older. The reality, however, is that my friends who have had children go through the system, some of them I had as students at the middle school and went on to the high school, they did fine. And they got into activities, they did what they wanted to do, and they had a good time. And have done fine since. But now, I'm wondering, what's the difference? If we have a middle school, we currently have a middle school that provides a broad range of activities. If we should separate, why wouldn't Raymond kids get the same opportunities that they currently have in Raymond? yes, they would have to go to, we'd have to find a high school for them. That could be Wyndham, could be Great and Gloucester, could be Lakes Region, could be, you know, any of the local high schools. But the Raymond opportunities would remain the same.
I think they would, because the parents aren't gonna let them have anything less than what they deserve and stuff
Exactly.
like that. And I know Wyndham has always been before, I think before we consolidated, because Raymond doesn't have like a wrestling team for middle school, Wyndham invites them down there to do it, or they go over to Gray. The other schools are really quick to pick up smaller schools for teams and stuff like that to come and you know, add to their team is what it is too. So I don't think we lose opportunities.
I have a question though. So, not sports necessarily, but what about like language classes or special ed resources or other things that are probably, they have one person that does throughout the district. How does that get reallocated?
Janie, any answer?
The special ed is the same throughout the district, because that's by law.
Yeah. I guess if we are, I guess my point is if we're sharing resources, if one person is splitting, you know, putting a third of their time into the schools that are in,
I mean,
that
is there
would
a
be the Raymond
language
School
program
District.
here at Jordan Small that, you know, that is offered in Wyndham?
I think there's, I'm sorry to be, I think there's a Spanish program here, I'm pretty sure there is. But I think that's shared.
Right, so
around.
with the economies of scale, how much more does it cost us to keep up the same programming if we're having to?
Yeah,
I
I
guess
know,
that's just
that's one of the
it's
questions.
one of the things that is what I understood from scholastic opportunities.
And that's what we would have to say is, okay, like a full-time superintendent, do we need that? Can we use a Spanish teacher more compared to a full-time, say, superintendent? And that's what working out the whole budget.
Well,
would be.
from before the consolidation, I can tell you, we had a full-time Spanish teacher.
Yeah, we did.
I was just using that as an
Yeah,
example.
no, I understand, but we did.
Great.
Do any middle school kids in Raymond go to Wyndham Middle Schools, or do they all go here?
They're, and I only know this because of talking to the parents. I think one of the kids just recently started high school, but I think maybe there's like a couple that do just for certain reasons.
Middle school to middle school?
Yeah.
But there's also a few middle schoolers that come from Wyndham.
Up here.
And there's some elementary school kids that come from
Yeah, there
Wyndham
are.
up here.
So there's a little bit of that back and forth, equality kind of a thing.
But is it because their parents are teaching at the schools?
No, actually, there's a girl in my daughter's second grade class whose dad works at Wyndham High School, but they bring the kids out this way.
And I have children in my class who are Wyndham residents.
And we'd want to account for that in the agreement to say, you know, if we wanted to, these kids can stay for X number of years.
And they would do a superintendent's agreement to do that, to get them to stay up here.
Am I hearing that this $8.5 million that we send to Wyndham does not filter back into Raymond in some way, shape, or form?
No, it does.
No, it does.
How does it- how does it- total school
No, this $8.5 million is what we
Our
paid
share.
in the RSU.
So that's over the EPS for all students?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, time frame on this?
Time frame is however fast we want to push it. One of the things, I think the biggest question in this town is making this as out there as possible to the public. And all of these are televised, and making it open to public so that they have every information that they can to vote on. So we can meet. Joe proposed at our last meeting to meet weekly. I don't hear any groans in here on that one, Joe.
Is it time to groan or?
You're grown now.
Yeah.
There's steps. There's 22 steps that we have to do, and there are timelines, but we can get continuances. I'm
Can
sorry.
we get that
but
from you
they
at some
didn't.
point?
Yeah.
The
whole
list,
thing?
the protocol and all
Yeah,
that?
we can put it down in there.
Yeah.
I can't get internet service in
No, I
here
mean,
for some
just,
reason, so
yeah,
I can
give it
pull
a
it.
chance.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that, I don't want to jump into this quickly. If the school committee is going to have a vote Wednesday night on this new funding formula, and hopefully go out to public by March, is that the idea? Doesn't it make sense that at some point to just kind of go slowly on this to see what comes out of that funding formula? Or are we so disenchanted with the RSU we just move on?
just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay, this is law now that we have voted, this town has voted to go through, the town, the committee cannot vote no to stop this.
But
The
the
town
town
has to vote to stop this.
But
Okay,
the
so,
speed at which we travel
yes,
Yeah.
is a different.
yes. So I just want everybody to know that it's not our call anymore, it's the town vote now that
But-
does this.
But we could, as a committee, hypothetically, we could, as a committee,
Just have a meeting
come to
in
the,
March.
or
Yeah.
if we all decided because of the formula was changed, that it no longer made sense, that we could, as a committee, then suggest that too.
Suggest that it goes, you come to the select board and suggest that it goes to a vote in
Yeah.
June.
Right, and
Is that the case though, is if the formula is reworked, is that really the only issue here?
I'm
Is-
not
That's-
suggesting that, I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
That's,
So we,
I think
It's a
that's a
big jump.
majority
it's a
of
big
the,
part
of
of
the
it,
heartburn.
but there are also other big parts to it.
Yeah, sure, there's
The
the
new
whole,
school- The new school is. a
Yeah,
big
that's
part.
just waiting to come out of the
Yeah.
garage,
You know, that's,
yeah.
But this
It's in the
process
horizon.
might help us
Yeah, I think so.
see whether the formula is the biggest issue, or if there's,
Right.
when we could get down into it and realize that the cost could come out differently or not.
well,
So-
one of the proposals from the RSU is that if Wyndham builds a new middle school, they're responsible for paying for it.
But Wyndham has to vote on that yet, and it has to pass from Wyndham.
Right,
Do you think
Which
Wyndham's
is-
gonna do it?
I don't know.
As far as contracting a high school, what's the impact to Wyndham if we say we
Over
went
$1
down this?
million a year.
Yeah.
So they're more than likely to not refuse a contract with
It's a
us,
lot of
right? I
money out of
mean,
their pocket.
Their whole high school budget and their debt service is based on Raymond students going there and helping pay for it.
So they need us there, so they're not going to say no.
Most of the districts that have separated, the contracts have stayed with those same schools. Because the towns have found it's easier to just contract instead of paying all this ancillary costs that you do when you're in RSU.
Is it worth, though, looking at whether it does make sense to contract with Wyndham for the high school? Because, I mean, it seems to me that if we're looking at this, it would be a good time to see if there's something else that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, I think,
I don't know, but
Right.
that
You've got,
it's a good opportunity.
what,
to-
18 people signed up to be in this committee? That's pretty amazing in itself. So, I don't know that we have to sprint, but I don't know we have to drag our feet either, that perhaps
Right.
there's been enough things said tonight that maybe there's a value in us taking a few months and just kind of, it'd be nice to come out and say, gee, everything's great, and let's keep going.
I
But-
think it'd be
Okay.
worth sprinting to get the data in place.
Yes.
I
Right.
agree.
Because
Okay.
too many of us don't know enough about the finances, the
None of
student
us,
projections,
probably, yeah.
all the rest. And that is stuff we have to drag out of people, I guess.
Yeah.
And we might as well try to make a big push on that so that we'll be prepared if we want to pursue it much further.
It's a lot more open now because we are formal, is what Paula Gravel, she's a person that wrote all these rules. And speaking of her, I did ask for a 279, and she said it will be months, and the 279 is the subsidy that Raymond would be getting, because she said they literally figured that out with a calculator and numbers and a little formula themselves. And so what happens is there's the people that are staying together get it first, and we are last on her priority. But we also have to get the okay to get a continuance and have it a good reason to have that continuance too from the state, because we have 90 days from the time that we got the papers, and then we can ask for it, which would put us at March 9th. And we have to have it, ask for a continuance.
We have 90 days for what?
For what?
To put together withdrawal agreements.
Oh, well.
Oh.
So there is a time frame.
So
There
Yeah.
is a time frame, but I figured we had that
That's kind of
continuance on
sprint.
it.
Oh,
So,
I see what you're
That's
But-
a sprint.
I didn't realize that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a sprint, yeah.
it's, yeah,
Although we can ask for an extension.
we can,
you're saying.
right,
Okay.
and I think,
Well,
but
if we
this
can't,
is-
if we
it's
can't
from
get,
the
if we
state,
can't get
from
the
education.
projection on the state
Subsidy?
subsidy.
She said, don't even look at that, she says, put together a budget, not
Oh,
including
not-
that, she
not
says,
including
yep,
that.
and she
Yeah.
said, the
Those
subsidy is just
projections
extra.
don't come out until the state
No.
budget
And
is
Right.
sometime
And then
in
they
March.
change
Yeah.
up to the last minute
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Jim Ryer is even there, and he was the
Right.
brains, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Joe, is there any value to trying to set up an informal negotiation with Wyndham to look at the various hot button items? I mean, the money side is one thing.
Right.
But even if you got that totally resolved, if you don't solve the other issues of are you going to be truly consolidated or
Right.
not, it has little value. The money's going to be what the money's going to be. I mean, if we split, we can figure out we can figure out what that budget's going to be. That's not rocket science. But the whole thing is, are you no matter what you do, you want to end up with something that people are comfortable with. And if the issue is that there's enough problems on the right side that the money's not going to balance it out, but if they're willing to move both on the money side and on the true consolidation side, then it makes the decision a lot simpler.
Jennifer, I assume you can bring it up to your school committee whether or not they're willing to talk to us.
Oh, well,
I got the
sure that
sense
they would
from
be.
Marge when we met as a select board that we were more of a nuisance to her.
No,
I love March, but it was a how do you do, let's get this done, okay, everything's under the table, let's move done, and meeting was over.
I'll give you 30 minutes, we'll introduce ourselves for 20, and then see you later. The meeting's over.
Yeah.
I know the board would be absolutely willing to talk to the group.
Okay.
You know, the financial piece is pretty easy to judge, yes or no. It's that cultural piece is so hard, you know, we can say, yeah, we'll be buddies, and then,
Yeah,
that's a hard one, that's a hard one.
I don't know how you take that cultural piece and change
You can't
it.
mandate it.
Well, you can't do it overnight.
Right.
It's parents.
But we've had
It's
6
parents.
years now of trying to do it,
Gotta be parents.
and it's slow, I think it's slowly getting there, but it's not.
Well, if you were to be able to get to a point where you could put down in steps, here's where we are, here's where we want to be, how are we going to get there?
Right.
That's one thing. At this point, there's none of that even on the table.
But that lays at the board. The board needs to take that stand and I think if they do that, people will follow behind it because that is now the new rule. You know, and they say, okay, we are cutting the line at 115 and 35, and this is how it's going to be. And you deal with the fallout. That's what they have to do. But they have to make that move to make it consolidated and take that stand. But utilize what we have first. And then a couple $1 million to fix a roof compared to what you can bond out or whatever, compared to a $40 million brand new middle school that there's no state funding whatsoever on. Just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I think it lies all at the board's feet. I really do.
I just have a couple questions because I'm new to all of this. So what I'm understanding is Wyndham wants or needs a new middle school. Is that because of population or structural?
Both.
Yes.
It is both. Okay. And so we have a fine middle school that could support more students here.
With
Okay.
less work
With
than
less
that.
work involved,
Yeah.
would they, so I guess I would wanna know, I'm not a Wyndham resident anymore, but maybe it could be approached to the voters also that you would save this much more to keep us all together, cause I know voting on the cost sharing is gonna be hard, but if we can throw at them that, hey, would you rather pay for this whole big school by yourself as opposed to doing a little bit of reconstruction?
How big is the proposed middle school for students?
I don't know, but I know the numbers are coming back at is anywhere between $32 to $40 million, and that does
Oh, I
not
know,
include
That's
but
interest.
I
We have
mean,
a-
but if there are 700 students versus 450, 500, then it could be a different type of structure too. So you could come in and basically say, no, you don't have to be at the $32 to $45 million new middle school. It could be 20 to 25.
But that's what I said to him. Use what you have and then look and see what you need left over and stuff like that. I think Keck, Portland Design Tech, architect came in and they did up some ideas. And that's also on their subcommittee thing to talk to them. And I think they based it off of Westbrook Middle School that was built on the numbers.
They looked,
put a lot of
right,
money
they looked at
into
renovations
Westbrook.
only,
Yeah,
new builds,
they did.
had
And
all
that's
different
too small.
scenarios.
Yes. So, but I think as far as the school goes, they want a new school, but even not paying for that money, they don't want to pay for it from what I'm hearing, because I put enough articles in the newspapers for people to see what's going on. But on the other hand is they don't want to utilize what we have here.
Well, that comes down to culture.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the way I look at it, I agreed to move to Raymond for 6 months because it was close to my husband's work. But I was a city girl. I grew up in Portland. I wasn't going to stay. But we've stayed because of the schools. Because I love that I can go into the elementary school and I know every teacher and I know every kid. I don't mind that my high schooler rides on a bus for 45 minutes before it's even light outside because we get that other return. Whereas you have Wyndham parents that say, I chose to live here because my kid has a 10-minute ride to school and I've got all these conveniences here. And so it's a cultural thing. So you can say $40 million or $5 million, but
It's not gonna be, yeah.
Excuse me, just as a question, in terms of recreational athletic programs, are the towns separate?
For middle school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
high school.
That's a way, I mean, you could also go in and try to coordinate those so that the kids from 115 up are playing soccer with the kids up at,
they're
neck.
separate, but they're
different divisions, is what it is.
but there's
Can't
they don't have
they're
to, but in the
open.
You
rec,
need
in
to
the rec leagues,
equalize.
they don't have to be.
No,
right, and,
So,
but they are
I mean, that's
open
part
to
of what goes on.
receiving kids.
Oh, I don't want my kids to go to Raymond because all the kids they play soccer with are in Wyndham.
right. Well, it was even proposed to come up here because there's not as many kids on the teams and you'll be playing a lot more. And it's still the matter of coming to Raymond. At the meetings that we had, and it was a reporter that brought this up. Gianna, you were at that meeting. Not one thing was an educational reason as far as not sending their kids to Raymond. It was, they don't have snowshoeing. And the big one is Raymond does not have a police department. And that's what they pay for, is to have their school's police department. But they went through lists of all these different things, and this reporter wrote them all down. And he turns around and he says, not one of those was educational at all. They didn't say anything bad about the teachers. They didn't say anything about the schools. It was all, I can't get an extra story in at night. The daycares aren't certified. It was all this different stuff. And it was crazy. But once again, I think the school board needs to make a stand and say, this is what we have to do as a consolidated RSU. And it hasn't happened. So what, I guess, to me, my back's against the wall. So I'm saying, I don't want to pay for a brand new school when we've got this one up here. So you hear get involved. Well, I got involved, and this is where I'm pushing to say, okay, if we have to push back to get some changes, then this is what it's taken to do this.
I mean, this is total speculation on my part, but I think the RSU long-term goal is to have all the kids in one middle school.
Yes, that came up.
Yeah, so you take all the kids that are going here now, and all the kids from Wyndham, and you put them in one school, so they start the integration process after 6th grade or 5th grade, whatever the process is, and they're all in one area. You eventually shut this one down. That's just speculation, but
So
I
is
would
that,
guess.
you say it's their goal, is that the
The
school?
RSU school board, I would
Okay.
guess, in the
That wasn't,
administration.
I was on the facilities committee
Yeah.
before I was a school board member.
Yeah.
That was not part of the discussion at all. In
Okay.
fact, there are many options that involve keeping Jordan Small just as is.
But I was also on that facilities committee back in 2008, and that was the discussion of bringing everybody into one middle school.
Look what Katrina
Different
Sangster
players,
said at her select board meeting to Mike Reynolds. They were talking about what do you look at as far as priorities goes, as far as paying for things. And she said in a roundabout way, and Mike questioned her, you're not going to put money into a building that you're not going to be using long term. So that's the reason why, and I'm trying to think when, it was last August I think it was that she was at, and it's on that video. So she says, yeah, pretty much. So that's the way, but as taxpayers in this town too, is all of a sudden we don't have a middle school anymore. So guess what? That's not going to be pulling families into this town. It's not going to be bringing economic development into this town because you've got one elementary school, and then meanwhile everybody's going to start leaving Raymond. So that's another big concern of mine is I want to keep Jordan Small in here thriving. I want to keep Raymond Elementary thriving in here, and try and get Raymond back up with with the kids in
Why-
Raymond.
How do you make that leap?
I don't.
What is the middle school, does not having a middle school make that happen, what you just said?
Oh,
I
you
mean,
mean
I don't
here
know.
if we don't have a middle
Terms
school?
of- Yeah, I guess, I don't know, but I'm just saying, by not having a middle school and just an elementary school, and knowing that all the kids are gonna go to one middle school, and then they're gonna go to high school, so they know each other, blah, 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 public school system. Why would that have such a bad effect on people wanting to live in Wyndham, in Raymond?
I think
I just don't know.
I can help there, because what we heard at the town office was that people like to keep their kids close to home as long as they possibly can.
Okay.
And if they can keep them there through 8th grade, that makes them happy.
Yeah, I mean.
And they're likely to move to your town because they know their kiddo is gonna stay in our school system until they're 13.
One of the things that I have heard consistently when I've asked people, why did you move to Raymond? Is, I moved here because the schools were good.
Yep.
Used to hear that consistently.
I can attest to that. I just moved here a month ago. We chose Raymond
You moved
over
here a month ago?
Yes.
Wow.
She's jumping right into this.
Jumping right in, yeah.
I do. I want to be a member of this community. We came here to be a member of the Raymond community. We left Wyndham. Wyndham's a fine area. I got to Walmart in 5 minutes. It was awesome. Now it takes me 18 minutes. That's okay because for my kids, for a long time, I live a mile from here. That was huge for me. Same thing, Wyndham doesn't want their kids coming here. It's a time and travel thing. You want to keep your kids, whether you're in Wyndham or Raymond, close to you for as long as possible. High school, they're older. They can drive.
Or
They're gone anyway.
Yeah, it's in our
And
process.
by the time they get to high school, you're pulling your hair out anyway.
Yes, you want them to be there.
And I want them to go away.
The extra 45 minutes to get to school is great. Yeah, you would lose. We have friends throughout this entire community. Children who go to Lakes Region, who go to Gray New Gloucester, who go to Wyndham, who have gone to Raymond. Wyndham is the best option in this area. So it's a huge concern as me as a parent saying we're going to leave them. What happens to our kids? Where do they go?
Wyndham's the best high school, you're saying?
Yes, best high school from a parent's perspective that I've heard around here.
Because it's close for sports, it's close for involvement for your kids. To get
It's
into
right,
as a lot of
it's
people's
large
schools.
enough to be competitive.
Yeah.
It's not too big, it's not Gray New Gloucester. It's not Lakes Region, which as a parent, and I speak with other parents, nobody likes that school. I'm scared, I don't want my kid to go there.
What about Poland? Is it too far away?
Mixed about that.
My kids went to Poland.
I think it's
Awesome
people's
experience.
choice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right, that's what.
And I've heard that they've also started the proficiency base
Yep.
But how far is it?
earlier.
That's my question.
It
Depends
depends
on
on
what side of Raymond.
Depends on where you are. It's pretty close to me.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from a parent perspective, Poland is the second best choice as opposed to Wyndham.
When there was a consolidation talk back in the 90s, and they were building Poland High School, it was Minot, Poland, Mechanic Falls, and Raymond was part of that discussion.
Yeah.
Raymond was gonna pay about 70% of the cost because our valuation
It
was
so
so much,
high.
so much
Yeah.
better than the other three towns. That's why it never happened.
They had to keep pulling in other towns because you had to
Yeah.
have so many people, like 2,500
Right.
in the district, so they kept pulling more towns in.
Well,
That's who it is, right? It's Mark.
as far as your concern goes, it appears that when these withdrawal agreements occur, you generally contract with the same school.
Yeah.
Right,
That's what
so
we
how does that work? Do buses still come and pick up our kids?
Yeah,
It's part of the
Great.
contract.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, the contract was that you would have to go down to Mill Street, drop your kid off,
Oh, yeah.
they get on the bus, and then they go to Wyndham.
Wyndham would come up, Westbrook would come up, and even one from Gray, and I believe at the time Poland was coming over.
sure,
But
and
then-
NYA.
Yep, and then what happens is
Okay.
they started to back off though because there wasn't as many people going to Westbrook, so they were just sending them up for one person.
Right.
But you got the people, the kids coming back to doing that. I'm
Okay,
sure that
so
we can talk about
contract
them.
still works, that kind of
Yep.
makes
Yeah.
it
Oh,
easier.
yeah.
And end up going to Wyndham,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
We would have to put that.
What?
We have to figure it
Right.
What's the current high school tuition? Is it like 10,300?
10,000, 9 something, 10,000.
I remember it was 7,800
It's under
bucks when we did the
10.
consolidation.
What's that?
It's under 10.
It's under
No,
10,
I think it's
but
like
9 something,
92,
yeah.
I think, isn't it? Something like
Yeah.
Yeah, the last number I saw was like 10.3.
What's the EPS, does anybody know? Last time I looked, it was 7,200.
Yeah, I think it's
That's the
close
figure
to
I thought I
8,000.
saw.
It's all gonna
on this,
change.
I can't get my.
It's all gonna
Soccer.
change.
Right. If they do a new formula.
Yeah. You know, and we talk about, I think back to Westbrook, and people in Raymond really liked going to Westbrook. It just was just too far. It just, to come home and go to games and all that.
23 miles.
Yeah, it just, parents just, it was a hassle for parents, but people were treated well in Westbrook.
All right, have I missed anything here, or have we missed anything here?
Current contract commitments that we might need to break out. I don't know, like principals, stuff like that. And then the bargaining agreements
And that would
with the teachers and how that's done.
There must be a state protocol for this, because again, if you go back in your file, the SACO was very explicit in how all this broke
Yeah,
out.
I'm sure there is, but we just.
There must be a protocol for that.
And could we have a timeline, potentially, what
Yeah.
fiscal year are we talking about? If this process is to go through?
One of the reasons Paula says that a lot of these fail for the towns is because you have to have at least 50%. You're having a 50% sale. 50% of the voters in the last gubernatorial election is what it is. And to get it voted, I think that we would be, for like a June or July, we would put it on for, I think, 2016. I think is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you say 2016?
It'll be fiscal year 17.
17,
Right.
16, 17.
yes.
Because if we vote in 15,
Right.
then it would be
What-
for
If you,
16,
this
17.
July is fiscal year 16,
Right.
so the following year will be fiscal year 17. Anything else?
I've got a question I'd like to ask Jennifer. You were serving on the Properties Facilities Committee. Is there a comprehensive report of each of the individual schools, what they need, maybe
Yep.
even estimates?
Yep.
And because that would be valuable in terms of getting, if we decide to get our schools back up to snuff, what we need to do as a community.
Yep.
All right, so
It was
Teresa,
just
you
for
said
the-
we have a
it's just for the
90-day,
middle school.
what are you doing
That's
over
what we
there?
had looked at.
Look at your computer is dying.
A 90-day timeline, right?
Yeah, and actually that's what I'm trying to bring up right now.
March 7th.
March 9th, I think it was.
March 9th.
March 9th.
More like 60,000.
Yeah, because it was voted,
That's the 90 days.
90 days to do what? Is that for
To
the
put
report?
together withdrawal agreement. Hold on. Pull it up under that thing.
Unless you get the waiver,
unless you get a continuance.
continuance.
All right.
Who grants the continuance?
The Department of Education.
And how long is it generally?
Okay, so we're on step 7 was a withdrawal committee shall, all right, step 8. The withdrawal committee shall negotiate a withdrawal agreement with the regional school unit board and shall submit the proposed agreement to the commissioner within 90 days after the committee is formed. The commissioner may grant extensions of time upon the request of the withdrawal committee. See required elements of a withdrawal agreement, and it tells all that. Within 60 days of the receipt of the withdrawal agreement, the commissioner shall either give it conditional approval or recommend changes, and that's step 9. So we have 90 days, and that would be, I think it was February 9th that we got the letter. So, no, oh my God, December 9th is when we got the letter, because we had to meet with the school board.
March
Yeah, March 9th.
To work on this
No,
agreement.
I would, because you just approved the committee. When did you approve the committee? When did the select?
Just
board-
before Christmas.
December,
So wouldn't that be the start date?
yep, so January, February, March.
It's December 9th that you approved
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
Was at that select board meeting. All right,
So
what
we
else?
have to come up with a plan for getting out of all this before we make any decisions. That seems weird. Okay.
Well, but I think what we're trying to do here is trying to figure out what Raymond would look like once again, just kind of like going backwards as far as the
I want to
consolidation.
make sure we hit every area, that we need to look at.
Well, those plus what's required from the state.
Right.
And I can make sure everybody gets those.
I guess one question I would have is who owns the school buses right now and how would that be divided? Or the transportation issue might,
Everything is the
RSU.
RSUs, and everything has to be negotiated.
It's very explicit in the SACO agreement,
Yeah.
how they're doing it,
Yeah.
so it's not a bad model.
All right. What do people want to do moving forward? Okay, you think we've hit all the highlights? We have a model out there in Saco that we can use to cobble something together. I mean, there was mention of a discussion between the withdrawal committee and the school committee, or a subcommittee of the school committee maybe. Does that make sense?
But my concern is, look how hard it was for us, the selectmen, to get a meeting with them. And it was literally time constraints, I think is what it is, and we're still under time constraints.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, with the March 9th. And we squeezed in just literally, we voted one night, the next night we quick met with the board chair real quick just to say we had to pick a chair just because we were on time constraints. And I'm a little concerned about not getting to that meeting quick enough, to be honest.
Couldn't those processes be happening concurrently? I would just say is that, not that that holds up anything that we're doing, but I mean, we could go through this withdrawal process and could not pass. And if, you know, and then we would still want to have tried to make.
Right.
I think we should be doing both, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's what I'm saying.
And I don't think us having a meeting, I don't think that if we meet with the school board, it means we're not doing anything else.
Right.
And I think that, you know, maybe we run into the same experience, but then we've all had that experience and we say, oh, look, that's really what they think?
Yeah.
You know, because right now, honestly, part of the reason I'm here is because everything I hear is second or third or, so what's really happening? So it wouldn't hurt for me to have some of those experiences and say, no, I was really there,
We
really.
can do it.
Really.
Well, and I think one of the things like tonight, like, okay, what information does people need to start working on this? One of them is the number of kids in the school in the district. Okay, so we can start getting that. I think the other thing that we need to look at is that budget, the first budget, 08, 09, compared to what was spent, what was done, compared to now, kind of everybody getting an idea.
There's a lot of stuff in that initial budget that's not there now, like the administration contracts that were involved, because, you know, administration got cut. A lot of the people from Raymond who went there as administration are no longer there, so you have to pull out some of those numbers.
But you can look at that. So that's stuff that we can be getting really quick, like, and saying, okay, how do we start this?
What are we looking to get out of a discussion with the school board? What?
I think a philosophy, maybe.
Well, I guess my question, and not to sound too cynical,
It's okay, we're all, I'm the number
Well, I
one
mean,
cynical guy around, so.
aside from timeline concerns, it seems to me that in the last several years, things that should have happened haven't happened, so is there any real good faith or trust that?
But they are happening now. You know, this
It
is.
was a
They're
hard
happening
push.
once we said.
Yeah, we had a push.
But
we have to
right.
keep pushing.
It shouldn't
That's-
have. It shouldn't have come to this to follow.
My honest
An
opinion
agreement.
is, they didn't remember it in the contract, is my guess.
It's a group of volunteers,
Right.
right? I mean, just like all of us here,
Right.
so they're doing the best they can.
Right, my guess is they totally missed it and just left it the way it was. Until somebody raised the question.
And to be honest, if that's truly the case, then there would be some benefit in a discussion. If it's not the case.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not high school students.
Yeah, I know a lot of the people in that administration over there. I don't think they're evil people, and I don't think they said, oh, we're gonna screw Raymond. Yeah, I just don't feel that way.
But if we think about it,
We did
we
get
might.
screwed, yeah.
We did.
But I don't think it was intentional, I really don't. I just think they just forgot about it.
Kate
And
brought up a really
that's
good
good.
point. Kate Bricks did. I mean, because everybody that's on the board, the only person that's there was Kate.
Yeah.
Marge came in after our mid-consolidation,
Right.
and Jerry wasn't even on the consolidation, but she's been there, and everybody else has been new, so there's like a lot of new people. But honestly, I'm gonna say this, I put it on Dawn and Sandy. They're the ones that run the numbers. They're the ones that have been there since the beginning on this, and it fell at their feet. It really did.
You would think that they would have the support staff to
To
ticket
say, we have a
stuff like that.
contract here,
Right.
especially this, and looking,
They've
and you
got
gotta
union
know,
contracts.
right.
I wouldn't think that they would forget something like
No,
that.
I agree.
That's why I'm saying, I think those are the only people that run the numbers, they have the numbers, they have the contracts. It's
There
everywhere.
hasn't really been a long-term member of the school committee who was there from the beginning. And I think that it just.
And that can happen,
that
volunteers.
happens. Yeah. So,
Somebody brought up before, I think it was this gentleman, that we need to know what the maintenance issues are with these schools.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be the first to admit, I don't have a clue what I'm doing on this. I just know I did the first step as far as, I'm gonna put it out there. I mean, literally, I was hoping to get the petition done and pass the buck to somebody else and say I'm done with this, and then I saw who had to be on this committee, I'm like, oh my God. But, you know, it's literally taking one step at a time, putting it out there to people and saying, okay, you guys run the numbers, what do you guys need? I'll get as much information as we can.
You know, I would suggest that we apply for a continuance already.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Good idea.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
too.
because I really want to see what happens with the funding formula vote and the changes that may happen in
Yes.
March. And I think it just makes sense that if you ask now, you give them 60 days to reply and say, yeah, you can move forward.
I think Paula's gonna give it to us only because she's not for withdrawals, but she understood why we were doing this because of the new school. So I think that they would be saying, we're not so quick to jump into it, we're trying to exhaust every opportunity too.
So I'm gonna put the burden on Caitlin
Yep.
and Teresa to come together,
Tag you.
write a letter to, do you write it to Paula?
Yeah.
And ask for a continuance of 180 days
Good.
to
That's a
give
good
us
idea.
time to get through this.
Well, in the meantime, maybe we can have that meeting about true consolidation.
Yeah.
To get to discuss that with the Wyndham School Board.
And we'll ask Jennifer,
RSU14.
Jennifer, you will try and set up a meeting, at least so we can discuss with the school committee about philosophy and what they're
Sure.
thinking.
Sure, are we gonna be talking about our own, schedule? Should we try to
Yep. Yep.
match it with the schedule or?
Joe,
Okay.
do we have any idea on any legal costs that we have to factor in either, I mean, we've got this, this committee, or your committee, has some funding available, I'm assuming some of that can go through any legal drafting that's gotta be done, but do we have any further legal costs that we've gotta calculate into any budgets? I mean, when we did that's why some of that '09 budget is not fully relevant, because there was a lot of legal costs that rolled into that originally.
For the contracts.
Are we gonna have any offsetting ones that we've gotta factor into any budget that we
The
calculate?
town voted to give us $25,000 for this committee. My hope is to not do anything with it, so you're not getting paid for your gas money.
What about our time?
I mean,
No postage.
until we actually arrive at a negotiation with, and then have a lawyer present protecting our interests, if we need to go down that road.
I talked to quite a few different towns when I was researching all this too, and I call and I ask how they did it. One town turned around and said they didn't want to do anything, and they spent the money. It was like the state told them a good number is $50,000, and they used it, and they didn't go through with it because it didn't vote. Other towns, it all depends on how much people and how much resources you have on your own to do all the work yourself. And if we've got a big group like this, I think that we can do a lot of it. And then if we need advice, it's like, boy, when you were doing budgets, I saw your application. I was like, oh my God, here's our like.
That's a different stuff.
Yeah, that really doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then the budget, 3 of the budget finance people, do you know what I mean? You guys are used to looking at budgets. So I was hoping that out of that, I know we used a little bit of it for advertising that we had to do for running the ad, but other than that, I was hoping not to use any of it until the very end. Do you know what I mean? So that way we can figure out, and if there's questions, maybe what we can do is call another town to say, how did you pass through this?
So
And
to get back to the timeline, we're going to ask for the 180 days. We're going to negotiate, or we're going to wait for the cost sharing negotiation to happen with this school committee, which is Wednesday.
That's already happened.
Okay, but
This is the final
the
vote
vote
on
is
what they
Wednesday.
came up with, yeah?
And then the third thing that will happen is that we're going to negotiate with the school committee.
Well, have a discussion.
Have a
I'm not sure
discussion.
it's a
Yeah.
negotiation.
Yeah.
All right. Not the technical term negotiation, but to discuss perhaps a common philosophy. Okay.
I think if this group does nothing else, it'll open their eyes up to what their system is, how we perceive it, and maybe how we can make it better. I don't know. I kind of sit on the fence. I don't know whether I want to break from the RSU or not, but I sure want some more equality and I want some understanding, and I want some action. And I want to use our schools. I don't want to be spending $43 million on a new one if we don't need it. And I think by opening people's eyes, both here in this room, as well as hopefully the school board and the administration of the RSU, that we can make something happen to the good. Make everybody happy.
Jennifer, do you know what the new funding formula proposal is off the top of your head?
Just came out.
I know nothing off the top of my head, but I have it.
You have it in front of you somewhere.
I do.
Literally just saw it, that's why I was trying to pick that up. I just saw it.
I think they did one of those info graphics out, didn't they?
And the fact that it goes out for years bothers me. They're late.
2016, I know that it's 42%, and then it goes down to, eventually in 2018, we be paying only 33%.
36%.
36%.
So it's 64.36. Yeah, so by 2018, it would be 64.36, and it would be, starting in 2016, ours would go from 45 to 42, and then 17.39, and then 18 would be 36.
So we are at 45%, even though Katrina Sykes told me I was wrong.
45% above
I
EPS.
happened to
So
negotiate that contract.
well, it's of a $3 million number, I think, right? It's a much smaller number that we're at that 45% level for.
And I think,
Is that real money?
okay,
$3 million, yeah.
all right.
Well, it's 45%.
Okay,
So
so
real money, but it's not
and another clarification, one of the other things that they're talking about on this thing is what they're recommending is debt service cost sharing. Recommendation, future debt service obligation will be the responsibility of the town that engages in the capital improvement, parentheses, new construction of schools, renovation of schools, capital improvement of schools. So in other words, Raymond will still, no matter what, be responsible for any work that should have been fixed in the,
But it also means that.
But not responsible for the cost of the new
Wyndham,
one.
right.
no, that's if it gets approved by both towns.
Now, just to be clear, that 45% number right now is not like 45% of the school budget. It's 45% of the number over EPS. Yeah. Just to be clear.
But just to be clear, that school.
Because the Wyndham school budget's what, 37 million, 38 million, somewhere in there?
40 million.
So we're not paying 45% of that.
But Joe, that new school is all over EPS, so it will be 45% of $40 million.
Right.
So that is the huge thing
But
there.
that's why we're
Right.
waiting for this funding for it. So. All right, date for the next meeting. What makes sense? I think we've covered everything. Everybody agree? Did we miss anything?
I think, I don't know about you all, but I wanna know what happens on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So,
Anybody want to go to Wyndham?
Is that what the meeting is?
Yeah. We can ask them to come up here to Raymond. There's more of us than them.
When is the next school committee meeting in Raymond?
Next month it would, no, it'd be the, this is the beginning of the month, it'd be the,
Well, it's usually it would be the third Wednesday, but I think our schedule's different this month. I think we're meeting 2 Wednesdays in a row, so I can check on that. So I think the second Wednesday.
both of them in Wyndham.
No, I think the second one should be in Raymond.
All right. Next Monday, there's a budget committee meeting here in this room, right, Ralph?
Right.
Right. We have a meeting next,
We have one tomorrow.
we have one tomorrow. What about next Tuesday night,
What's
The 13th.
the 13th?
You have the 13th and the 15th open. Which is
Correct.
better? Oh, wait a minute,
Something
Dominic. Oh, what's the
Is this
calendar
room
like?
available the 13th?
I was just looking for the calendar.
Okay.
Check it out.
Saturday, 4 o'clock.
Because we will,
Yeah.
we'll know Wednesday what the school decides. And then, because looking at this is if the board recommends changes, they'll do it in January, then the board completes it and votes on it. And then they'll also call for a public hearing and district-wide meeting or referendum.
What days were you guys looking
The
for?
13th?
Clear. This month or next month?
This month.
Yeah, it's clear.
Next week. All right, the 13th at 6 o'clock?
How does everybody's schedule look?
Does that work for everybody?
That's not for me.
No, I'm with you, it doesn't work for me either.
Keep 9 horses to take care of.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are generally bad in our house.
All right.
Tuesday's bad for me.
Monday is better for me, but, I mean, I can be here.
And we have to switch between the.
One suggestion would be I could send out a survey monkey and we could see automatically what days work for the most amount of people.
Well, but what happens?
We may
is-
want to set next week's meeting, but then for the weekly meetings moving forward, I could get the available days and then I could send out all of the possible available days to everybody here and everybody could let me know which ones work for them. And then we could try to get the most amount of people at the most meetings.
I think Monday is a good night with the exception of 3 nights we have between now and April 15th. Okay, so your survey monkey.
So is there any reason we couldn't meet the following Monday? Oh, that's the night.
Martin Luther King Day.
Right.
The 26th,
You wanna wait that long?
you wanna wait that long, that's a,
Well, I personally don't see the need for us to move with such speed if we're asking for an,
Yeah, we
a
don't know we got
waiver.
it though.
Pardon me?
We don't know we received it.
yeah, but I'm pretty sure you
We
can
can
get it.
get it.
Because Caitlin writes a good letter.
Mhm.
And Mike,
And Mike's gonna go
and
knock on
Mike
their
should
door.
hand it to him. So,
Good, so I'm out of that.
It should be.
all right, the 26th, would that work better for people? That's a Monday night.
26th.
Alright, so you guys wanted the timeline
Sound good?
for the whole process, the step.
Yep.
Alright, we'll put that on the Google thing.
Is there any chance we can start at 6:30?
6:30?
No. I have a granddaughter I have to pick up from school and hold until mom gets home.
Does 6:30 work for people?
6:30.
Sure.
Yeah, 6:30 rocks.
I might even go home and eat before
I was
come.
gonna say,
Yeah,
you could just
go
have
have
time
dinner.
in the door and be like, hi everybody.
So Teresa will get here at 6:29.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
wait a
So
second,
you
you
gotta
and I
figure
just
that out
met.
already. All right, so the next
Usually I'm
meeting,
free underneath
Dominic,
the
the
big plug in
26th
my
open?
computer in real quick.
Okay, so the 26th at 6:30. So this meeting took an hour and a half, so
Joe likes short meetings, direct meetings.
that one should be probably a little shorter, I'm thinking. But we'll have a result from the RSU, get us some numbers on population. And I think Wyndham will be cooperative with whatever we ask for. And
Should we invite some of the other school committee members to the meeting on the 26th?
These are all open,
They're all-
which is good, and they're all publicized too.
I understand that, but should
Yeah.
we invite them to come? I'm not talking about the Raymond, not necessarily the Raymond people,
Yeah.
but anybody from Wyndham,
Jennifer.
including Don Davis, who is
Yeah.
assistant superintendent and is a resident of Raymond,
Yeah.
or assistant superintendent.
he's a finance person.
I know he was a businessman, right? He really got promoted to
Assistant superintendent.
He's been assistant superintendent for a while.
Yeah.
Is he assistant
And
superintendent slash
Sandy,
businessman?
and Sandy
Yes.
Prince, who is the
Joe?
superintendent.
All right,
Joe?
so Jennifer, will you invite the
I
school
absolutely
committee
will.
and the
Yep.
administration? And then we'll see everybody on the 26th.
Joe,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
got a question.
Okay.
In reading through the agreement, I had some questions, and should I go directly to Sandy Prince for answers on that, or how do we go about something like that?
What agreement, can I ask?
Yeah, what questions?
You know, I just went through it and crossed things. This is the first time I've ever read it through, and some things I didn't understand in it, and just wanted some clarification. I mean, as a committee or as an individual, can I get answers to those?
I think since we're formed as a committee, I think it should go
Yeah.
through us as a committee now, because
Yeah.
if we have too many people going to
Right.
Sandy Prince, I don't want him getting.
Okay, so my question should go to you, Joe?
Actually, I think Jennifer.
I'd be happy to take any
Yeah.
questions and
As a
act
school
as a
committee
conduit.
member, I think it probably should go through Jennifer.
Okay.
So we'll
Is that
flood
all right?
Jennifer and she can, yep.
Yep.
Yeah, don't flood me, but yeah. That's right. Yes, I'm happy
Okay,
to do
Jennifer,
that.
I'm gonna ask you for your email address.
I
Okay.
will add our email addresses to the contact sheets,
Right.
which was, is not
Okay.
on there, and anybody can go on to the Google Drive and see anybody else's contact information,
Huh.
and you can
Should get on there.
update your own, it's all, you all have editing capabilities, and so you can update it if there's a different number.
Does everybody know how to use Google Drive and all
I
that?
just learned. We're doing 101 after
We're
this
gonna do
meeting.
it.
Oh, okay.
If you would like to stay after for.
All right. Thank you all for coming out on this cold Monday night.
Thank you.
And hopefully it was very helpful and we covered a lot. We all have a better understanding of where we're going. So, great. Thank you.
Thank you.